This weekend on the original Rochester Press Box.
I'm Gary Smith, and with baseball season coming up, I'll have some more thoughts about Alex Rodriguez.
And I'm John Ditullio from Fox Sports 1280, remembering the Tark.
And I'm Mike Catalana from 13 WHAM TV. I'll tell you my Dean Smith moment.
I'm Bill Pucko. It's the adults, not the kids, who spoiled the Little League World Series. Join us this weekend on the original Rochester Press Box. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the original Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko with you, and as always, joined by John Ditullio, Fox Sports 1280.
Billy, I get more. First, we've been doing this, 3 weeks. How about 3 years?
All right,
first time.
Wow. Mike Catalana for 13 WHAM News, Sports Director. Thank you for joining us once again.
Yep.
And the namesake of the Gary Smith Award, Heisman with a clipboard, Sportscaster of the Year Award, Gary Smith. It's a pleasure to have you, Gary. First of all, how do you go about getting an award named in your honor? What did you do?
I think it's probably because I'm 112 years old and they decided to do something like that. I don't know how the whole thing worked.
Well, we've each sort of got one, and we're proud to have him, and we're proud to have you on the show.
Puck wants his own. He's jealous, Gary. Don't let him kid you. He's jealous.
I have a Lowell McMillan one, too.
Yeah. I have one of each.
Well, so, this was... It was an interesting week to talk about coaching, I think, Gary. We lost Dean Smith, and Greg Popovich won, I think, his, 1,000th NBA game. Great coaches, different guys. In the modern day, or, your sphere of influence, who are some of the great coaches and why that you've come across?
Well, in professional basketball, if you go back to the mid-'70s and the Knicks' heyday, Red Holtzman, who played for the Royals, of course, before he became a coach. Great coach. Loved watching those teams because they played the game the way it should be played. Red Auerbach, you certainly can't go by him.
You got my guy.
And again, the Celtics played the game the way it was supposed to be played, and those guys just got the most out of the people they had.
When they were plugged in, I think, like Dean Smith was, and talked a lot about, the social consciousness at the time. That was important.
Yeah, I mean, John Wooden is certainly that type of guy, too, legendary. But what I love the most about it, and you hear it in these type of coaches, and even Mike Krzyzewski now, is the way their former and current players talk about him. And I loved hearing the stories about Dean Smith of if you were with a North Carolina guy and another North Carolina player walks in, the former player, you go right up to him. You always address a Tar Heel, how important it was for them to graduate, and how guys would talk about, I never made a life decision without a big one, without consulting my coach. And I think that goes even beyond the way they were on the court.
You're an historian, obviously, the Green Bay Packers, a team that you grew up rooting for.
Sure.
And Vince Lombardi is the guy. What made him special?
Well, I think, to get the most out of players, and I think that's what Lombardi was known for. Guys that, they won one game before he got there. The next year, they were over 500. 2 years later, they're playing for the NFL championship. He maximized people's ability. He pushed them to a whole different level that they didn't know they have. It starts with Lombardi, but here we're in an era now with Belichick, where I think now he is in that discussion. I think it starts with Lombardi. Who's after Lombardi? Who knows? You can go to Bill Walsh, you can go to Chuck Noll, but certainly Bill Belichick is in the discussion. Mike mentioned John Wooden setting the bar here. You got Dean Smith, of course, and then Mike Krzyzewski. We're in an era where it's unbelievable what we're witnessing in coaching with Greg Popovich, basically he's Norman Dale. Went over the head of a lot of people on the show, but what he preaches, if we've ever watched the movie Hoosiers, that's Norman Dale, that's Greg Popovich, team ball.
Just quickly, what do we do with Bobby Knight in this discussion?
I don't think there's any doubt that he was a great coach. Sometimes he wasn't a very good person. And I don't know that you mentioned the respect Mike did about that former players have for a guy like a Dean Smith or whomever. I'm not sure a whole lot of players line up to pay homage to Bobby Knight.
It's interesting
I think
how
he
that
never.
counts.
I don't think he ever evolved as a person, and I think you see it with a guy like Krzyzewski. I think he evolved into the current times, but he also always maintained his respect for the people who came before him and after him. And I don't believe guys like that believe my way is the only way. I think they adjust and evolve, and I think Knight failed in that.
The one thing, I love Bob Knight. I've always said he did more with less. He coached one Hall of Famer in Isaiah Thomas. He won 3 national championships. You go to 3 of those teams, 76, 81, and 87. Now, the 76 team is good, Scott May, but he coached one Hall of Famer, went on to the NBA. And who made the Hall of Fame? That was Isaiah Thomas.
We could bring in a psychologist
Great
and
coach.
spend an entire show just talking about Bobby Knight. He's
I
that
love the
interesting
guy.
a character.
Yep.
The Buffalo Bills sign a bad guy when the original Rochester press box returns. Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Bill Pucko here with you. Johnny, Richie Incognito, what do you think of the signing?
Well, listen, I've been getting beat up by Bills fans who think this is the second coming of Joe DeLamalure. He's an upgrade from what they have, but by saying that, I compared him to a bologna sandwich. I don't love a bologna sandwich, but I'm not going to turn down a bologna grill. It's fried bologna. I think it shows you how desperate they are. I'm not even worried about his off-the-field issues. I'm worried the guy can play. He hasn't played in a year and a half. 2 other teams didn't want him, and now he lands as the starting guard for the Buffalo Bills. I know it's low risk in the money. I don't love it, but I'm not going to hate it. You know what? We'll find out come July at Fisher.
I'm with John on everything he says there, except they were so desperate at guard.
Yeah.
They got the guy at a time when the real free agency hasn't begun yet. He's a street free agent because of his off-the-field issues, and he was left there. They pick him up. It is low risk. I do think he'll be on good behavior. Now, good behavior for him, we don't know what it's going to be. We'll see how it works. If there's a place they were desperate, it is guard, because they had nothing at guard. So we'll see what it is. But I'm also in agreement. He's not a superstar player. Yes, he made a Pro Bowl. Congratulations. A lot of guys have made the Pro Bowl. He's a good NFL player.
You looking forward to that first interview? I mean, you're going to run into him at
I
training
have
camp.
heard from people who talked to him, and I don't remember talking to him in 2009. He was only here at the end of the season. A guy described him, I think it was Jeff Darlington was on with John Murphy, and he was describing him as incredibly self-aware of his own issues. And he's an interesting guy, not in that way the meathead that he acted in that way. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to talking
Gary,
to him.
if our standards change, I mean, through the years, and we look at a good story, Paul Hornung got fired as the analyst for the Notre Dame football by suggesting that the reason Notre Dame wasn't doing better because they didn't have enough guys spend time in prison. The wording was a little, harsh.
Yeah.
Have our standards changed over the years in terms of what we'll put up with?
Oh, I don't think there's any doubt about it. They certainly have. I'm an old line guy. I really didn't like the signing of Richie Incognito simply because he has been a number of times a bad guy. However, I'm enough of a realist to understand that, number one, the Bills needed help on the offensive line without any doubt. It is, as you said, a low-risk signing, not a whole lot of money out there for him, and if he can't cut it in training camp, he's going to be gone anyway. So if he keeps his nose clean and can still play, he'll help the Bills.
And the other part about that, too, is, the Pagulas weighed in and said they think he's changed enough. Let's be honest here. They're not worried about changing Richie Incognito for the rest of his life to become this great citizen. They want him to hold it together long enough for when they need him, and they'll use him. They're using him. He's using them. That's the relationship in the NFL.
See, and I don't connect the bullying lines. I mean, Rex Ryan made that comment long before, Richie
Yeah, I don't
Incognito
connect it.
was part of the equation. Right?
Some people do, but I don't.
Well,
No,
I will say
not
this.
at all.
I think because he used that line in his opening news conference, and the first player he brings in is the guy connected to bullying, I think maybe Rex might
Bad
have.
coincidence.
It is, and if they had this in their mind at all, and obviously we know what Rex is talking about is on-field bullying the other team. It's just the use of that word, and it is tied so heavily to Richie Incognito.
They better sign another offensive lineman.
Yeah.
That can't be their only move this offseason. I'm not even including the draft. They better sign another guy.
Maybe bringing a quarterback or two. Like it or not, when we return.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. Like it or not, Michael, Jerry Rice in the news this week, kind of piling on Tom Brady and then maybe regretting
It's a little bit of glass houses here, right? I mean, if you're going to talk about the level of cheating, now I would say that stick 'em on your hands is pretty obvious, or it should be more obvious, and I think a lot of that got let go. By the way, just a quick aside, Jerry Rice and I were born on the exact same day, the exact same year.
You're going to go there.
We've combined for
Yeah.
5 Super Bowl championships, I think. No,
you
he
were
cheated.
throwing those balls,
Yeah.
weren't you?
No, but I mean, in the same context, he cheated. So again, it depends on. Do I think Jerry Rice is a cheater? No, but then don't open your mouth up about everybody else if you're catching balls from glass houses.
And we know this
I guess.
much, right? He's not very smart.
Jerry Rice?
I mean, to do that.
Oh, he's been killing the Belichick and Brady leading up to the Super Bowl. Chris Carter buried him this past week too, saying he cheated. That he should be held to just the same kind of standard we're holding Brady and Belichick to. You're right. He's not very smart. In for this instance, he did open his pie hole. The guy who was just all over the Patriots comes out and admits he's using liquid stickum, whatever, on his gloves. Come on.
You know who else used it? Mr.
Freddie
Erie.
Blitnikoff. Never dropped a pass, buddy. Well, what's the difference?
He invented it, I thought.
Well, they wear those scuba gloves anyway, which I think has Velcro
The
on
difference
them.
is there was no rule against
Yes,
wearing the
right.
gloves.
Yes,
There is against
correct.
wearing stickum.
Yes.
Yep.
See, he was one of those guys, like with David Tyree, said, what's the big deal about catching a ball off your head? It would stick to Blitnikoff. Gary, like it or not, A-Rod's apology.
I'm not an A-Rod fan at all. Never have been, and I'm certainly not over the past few years. I don't think his apology is particularly sincere. I think it's something he had to do. Had to say it out loud to the Yankees and had to say it for PR reasons. I think it's going to be very interesting to see if he can play, if he has anything left. He's not young. He has obviously abused his body some over the years. Can he play? I really don't think the Yankees want him to be able to play, unless he's playing out of his mind and helping him win a pennant. But I just don't see it happening.
That going before the media is going to be must-see TV, isn't it?
From what I'm hearing, they want him to try to do a lot of this before pitchers and catchers report to try to get it out of the way. But come on, it's New York, and this Yankees team is not going to be particularly interesting.
Right.
So the A-Rod thing is going to be kind of a default thing to go to all the time, I think.
It's going to be must-see TV, at least during spring training. I'll be watching spring training games only because of Alex Rodriguez and the circus that'll be happening in Tampa.
Is there any reason to believe that he's genuinely sorry about anything?
No, I don't think so.
Do you, any?
No.
None.
No.
None whatsoever.
God, then why come out with the apology? If no one's going to believe it, why do it?
Because he's A-Rod, he's a narcissist. He wants that. He
Because
wants to
he
be
thinks
known.
people will believe it.
Yeah.
And
It's all part.
I don't think it's going to happen.
It's all part of the act.
Johnny, like it or not, your boy Goodell has got a decision to make against Greg Hardy.
Well, good luck with that one. That's fishy. Something smells fishy. I thought Hardy was going to be looking at time. All of a sudden now, the case has been dropped. I think someone got paid off in this situation. I'm all for people getting a second chance, but I don't want Hardy anywhere. I've been getting calls about Hardy to Buffalo. I go, no, it ain't happening. A, they don't need him, and B, I don't want him. But you're right. The commissioner now, what does he do? He's already served time on that. He was paid leave of absence, so to speak. Now what does the league do? The league's got to step in with some sort of suspension under this new code of conduct, but we don't know what it's going to be.
I mean, these kind of things, it's not unusual to have these cases fail to get to court, is it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when the witness doesn't show up, as John said, somebody
got paid off.
Somebody got a financial settlement, and but he was found guilty in his first trial, and then appealed, and then the second trial didn't happen because the witness didn't show up.
That's with Goodell's track record and trying to mitigate these things. It's like,
he can do
it's
it.
just, it's a...
If anybody can do it, it can be Roger. Roger the Dodger.
Your guy.
Not Staubach. I'm talking about Goodell. He could do it.
You just want him to be head of the NCAA.
Him and Emmerich. They should form their own. Gosh.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know who's more of a goof, Goodell or Emmerich. I'm still trying to decide.
Unfinished business when we return.
And you don't need to be Native American to realize it is offensive. And it's not politically correct. It's the right thing to do.
He was an idiot for throwing him that pitch. The guy's phenomenal. He had no reason to give him anything, especially a fastball to hit.
It's simply that these two guys, Ronaldo and Tom Brady, are too good looking.
I like it, just don't admit to it.
Everybody wants to hate on the best in the world. He's here to stay, and he wants to build something big time.
The bottom line is, still nobody's going to like A-Rod.
Welcome back to the original Rochester Press Box. It's our favorite segment, Unfinished Business. John.
This past week we lost two great coaches. One, of course, Dean Smith, and yes, Jerry Tarkanian, a great coach. One of my first recollections of the Final Four, 1977, UNLV played, Dean Smith and North Carolina lost, but I loved UNLV's style. They were the running rebels. To me, up to that point, I didn't see teams play up and down. They didn't have a shot clock then, but they were the running rebels for a reason. They like to get the ball out and go up and down the court. Another thing Tark taught, defense. His teams played as hard as anyone had ever seen. He won a national championship. He went to Final Fours. Yes, he had his run-ins with the NCAA, but I always believed, I never interviewed him, never talked to him, but I always thought his heart actually was in the right place. Dean Smith will get a lot of the headlines this week, and rightfully so. But I think Jerry Tarkanian, one of the most underrated coaches the game has ever seen, although he had his run-ins with the NCAA. His teams were incredible to watch, fun to watch, and I think he helped change the game.
Exciting. Really, really exciting.
Exactly.
Games. Gary.
We touched on it before, but I'd like to talk a little more about Alex Rodriguez. One of my unfavored favorites. I've never been a Yankee fan. People who know me understand that. That being said, I always had great respect for Derek Jeter, for Joe Torre, people who conducted themselves properly. A-Rod, I think, has disgraced himself so badly to baseball fans in particular. He's a guy who juiced for a number of years. Not sure anybody knows how many years for sure, but he did it. Some people knew he did it. He has put up some astounding numbers, no doubt about that. But how true are those numbers? I think it'll be very, very interesting to see what happens in spring training, how he will be accepted by the fans who watch spring training, how well he plays, and how badly the Yankees really want him to play well. I think they would love to be able to divorce themselves from A-Rod for good right now. Whether that'll happen or not, good question.
That apology aside, the Yankees still have told him that they're going to pursue the idea of not paying him for those milestone marks,
right.
And he's going to have to sue them to get it, and he says he's gonna. I was trying to think of a solution that could never possibly happen, but it would be if he took the bonus money and somehow found a good charitable place to put it. I'm dreaming. That's just foolish even to bring up, I
If
guess.
the Yankees really wanted this to go away, they would just pay him off and get rid of him, right? Couldn't they just give him all the
I don't know
money?
why they can't write a check for $61 million
And
and
just
say
say
good
goodbye.
riddance.
It's still $61 million.
Right, but I mean,
I hope he apologized for writing his number on that baseball during the ALCS against the Tigers. That's what bothered me the most. They were still in that series, buddy.
They're probably auctioning that off. What else on eBay right now?
We talked a lot about Dean Smith and his legacy in basketball. And I tell you a personal Dean Smith moment. I had just started in television. I was working in Binghamton. And Binghamton at the time, high school, had a star basketball player named King Rice, who's now the head coach at Monmouth University. And I went to the Binghamton game. And back then, in the old days, I had the camera on my shoulder and I'm shooting the game. And I walk in, I can tell there's this big buzz in the arena. And then I asked somebody what's going on, and they point to the side, and there's Dean Smith sitting in the gym at Binghamton High watching King Rice play. So I'm dying to get an interview. And the coach from Binghamton says, "You can't bother the coach. You can't bother him. You can't bother him." So I said, all right. So I wait, and I see Dean Smith leave the building, and he walks out to the hallway. Well, he's gone out to have a smoke because Dean Smith smoked, and back then you could smoke in the hallway. So I went out, and I bugged him. And I said, "Coach," and I used all these people's names I knew, and he said, "No problem." And so while I'm holding the microphone, he puts his cigarette down. He holds the Channel 34 microphone and does an interview with me about King Rice. He didn't need to do that. I was just some kid working in some small bad station in Binghamton, but he did it. Always class, always style. It's my memory of Dean Smith. Rest in peace, Coach.
Perks of the job, mine was Al McGuire. I got
Yeah.
to MC a dinner with Al McGuire, and you were talking about Bobby Knight.
Yeah.
Stories we'll all have a chance to tell again, or maybe a later episode.
And you have those little personal moments. I think it's fun to remember.
As a panel, I think we agreed at the time, whenever the Little League World Series comes up, we as a panel on this show generally agree it shouldn't be on TV. We said, it's not good for the kids to be exposed to all this stuff and the pressure and everything about being national TV in the Little League World Series. Well, I think we've actually had that right, but we got the reason wrong, because it's not the kids, it's the adults that we had to worry about. The scandal that broke out this last week about the Little League World Series redesigning their boundaries, and a team under the flag of Jackie Robinson, for goodness sake, was caught cheating. It spoiled was a great money. We had Monet Davis. We had what I thought was even a better team, was an all African-American team winning the Little League World Series, and all that is erased because of the scandal. It's just a terrible sports tragedy. We were right in saying that these kids don't belong on national TV in the Little League World Series. We just got the reason wrong. We want to thank you for watching the original Rochester Press Box. It's our pleasure to bring it to you. John, thanks as always.
Billy, good stuff today.
Mike?
Thank you.
Gary, real pleasure having you in,
Great
man.
fun. Thank you.
All righty. Thanks again for joining us. We'll see you next week.